think we're good to go. Welcome to the AMT 2021 Annual General Meeting. We'll open the meeting now at 10:30 a.m. It's the 2nd of May 2021. I'm Michelle McCarran, current chairperson of the AMT board, and I'll be chairing today's AGM. I'd like to begin our meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to thank my fellow board members for being here this morning, Subhadra Gerard, Derek Zorset, Dave Moore and Christy Baird, as well as our CEO Rebecca Barnett and Company Secretary Katie Snell. And I'd like to welcome all members participating today. We appreciate your attendance. Feel free to write any comments as we go or any questions. And if we don't have time to answer all those questions, in the interests of allowing those of us attending the workshop after, we will endeavour to follow up those in an upcoming webinar. The first item on the agenda is the apologies and declaration of proxies. We have two apologies, Jodie Schubert and Joe Cotterill, and there was one proxy received. Item number 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the 2020 annual general meeting. So if I could get 2 people that attended that meeting, one to propose and one to second, if you could write your name in the comment section, that would be great. That all good, Katie?
We don't have anyone proposing or seconding.
Oh, okay.
So I've got Elaine Jackson and Liz Sharkey. Yep, we've got it now.
Thanks, great. Item number 3 on the agenda is business arising. However, there is no business arriving from the 2020 minutes. Item number 4 is the chairperson's report. It's hard to know how much to dwell on the past year's events. It can be hard to relive, especially considering the myriad of effects we face long-term because of the events of 2020, which of course cannot be separated from the devastation of the bushfires at the end of 2019. There's no doubt that this past year has been one of the hardest that AMT members and our industry at large have ever faced. We all know the personal battles that have been fought as we were all affected in some way. The ripple effects of the disease and work disruptions have been massive, leaving many of us with uncertainty and doubt about our health and our work. At the same time, those of us that have the ability and indeed the roles of responsibility and leadership within AMT must examine the processes used to get through that time and assess, rework and push on forward with efficient and possibly better ways of doing our work. So in my report today, I'd like to focus on what was happening behind the scenes, particularly within AMT, because that's where I see a truly positive side to all of the chaos. I think we all remember where we were on March 16th last year when the AMT directive was announced that all members should consider shutting their practices. It was quite frankly a bitter day, only made more harrowing when the governing bodies caught up later that week with the same and very final instructions. I'd like to commend all our members for carefully considering the advice and making decisions that were extremely difficult. And similarly, thanks must go to the board of AMT who spent many hours in mental torment considering just how it was all going to work. I'd like to acknowledge Subhadra, Christy, Joe, Derek and Dave, who brought their industry and personal experience to bear. I'd also like to offer thanks on behalf of the membership to our brilliant head office team, who stood alongside the board with each hard decision and made it all happen. Genuine thanks must go to our CEO, Rebecca Barnett, without whom we would not have seen it all coming, nor so deftly handled the torrent of information that needed to be sorted through. Also, Katie, Scott, Rima, Shaddy, Declan and Belinda for their above and beyond time and effort to support members. It's this level of partnership between all involved at AMT that I find most heartening and which I believe has led us to the degree of strength we have, not only strength in numbers, but in clarity of purpose. At the emergency board meeting we held 2 days before the shutdown announcement, decisions were being made on how to guide AMT members through the unknowns of those initial COVID days, and it was a hard-hitting and mentally draining meeting for all involved. We developed strategies that only ended up covering one day, But with the massive increase in phone and email inquiries to head office, we felt we had to come up with some plan on how to present the dual messages of members, do this now, as well as members, prepare to close as soon as possible. I'm extremely proud to look back and see so clearly that the leadership team of AMT acted with strength, was educated in its decisions, and gave timely and decisive direction that completely falls in line with our mission statement to support members, professionalise practice, and educate and inform the public and other health professionals. We also smashed it out of the park in relation to our vision statement of best practice, participation, leadership openness, and client focus. You were right there with us as we lived out every day on social media, keeping calm, caring, and appropriate behaviour as our fallback positions. And the reason this is absolutely worth mentioning is that it was proved that in a crisis, AMT can well serve its members and other stakeholders by relying on its foundational concepts. Here we are a year later, and those initial recommendations still make sense and have placed therapists very well in their communities. In those first days, AMT were suggesting screening clients before they attended a clinic. Still a good idea? Check. Cancelling sessions in vulnerable communities? Check. Temporarily limiting clientele to a small group of regulars? Check, where necessary. Using cleaning products as per instructions for clinics and laundering? Check. Reviewing all cleaning and other policies and procedures? Check. Having a risk management plan? Check. And expect clinic shutdowns at any time? Still check. With the benefit of hindsight, we can see that these weren't just band-aids at the time, they were relevant instructions that have stood the test over the past year and that many of us still turn to. As our shutdown concept travelled around the world, generating interest and momentum, particularly in the US, the AMT board and execs moved on to discussing the developing and release of webinars on personal development ASAP, which was exceptional timing as it meant our members went into lockdown equipped with a purpose. We also addressed mental health implications and situations of hardship, petitioning government for access to the stimulus package, and initiating our membership fee waiver as appropriate, along with temporary postponements of expiring first aid renewals and police checks. Only 2 weeks later, we held our AGM, not in Brisbane as we had planned, but for the very first time online, with minimal organisational time and in the end, record-breaking numbers in attendance. I'm humbled to think of how much we all needed that moment of connection, to see a few faces sharing our experience, to hear some message of hope, and for some of us even to sing together. As an unexpected bonus, it totally changed AMT's understanding of the way it could involve many more members in the AGM process for years to come. Excitingly, it cannot be overlooked that one of the most powerful tools AMT have produced from this situation were the many, many resources developed by the Biosecurity Committee. Once again, I would like to offer my heartfelt thanks on behalf of every member who has benefited from their work and all those who will find the resources useful in the future. So our thanks to Liz Sharkey, Rebecca, Subhadra, Dave, Greg Hurd, Leslie Carter, Shah Backen and Colin Rossi, plus Kate Henning and Jane Westheffer. I'm choosing not to use this forum to pick out negatives in the processes we used to make it through 2020. Because in essence, we succeeded by doing just that, simply making it through. The ridiculous rate of change, the constant hunger for updates, or in some cases, the complete disengagement as we all became overloaded at different times, means that any evaluation would be fairly subjective, opinions differing considerably. I will instead mention the fact that staff and board meetings were held regularly and staff reviews were completed in a timely fashion, allowing for a level of reflection throughout that period from which we can glean valuable information. Another positive was that our mentoring program ran to its planned timetable. I would like to express my gratitude to all who participated, but particularly the mentors who invested precious time into the next generation of therapists through a potentially very difficult time. What is hardest about all the disappointments of this period is that we have lost a few members who couldn't afford to stay in practice, whether for financial, health, or other reasons. My thoughts are regularly with these people, and I hope they haven't lost faith in the modality, but instead may find their way back to massage or be able to utilise the skills from that stage of life to move on to other amazing things. However, for most of us now, it is business as usual in the new norm of the COVID world. AMT sees its role in this stage to continue the work we have been consistently doing all along, and I mean from its inception in the 1960s, always making decisions with the best interests of massage therapists at the top of the priority list. Thankfully, our board meetings no longer need to focus solely on the effects of hellish bushfires and sickening COVID stats for now. But you can rest assured that they will if we need them to, no matter what the disaster or issue that arises. Instead, we look to the future, to the things that are going well, like our secure financial position, and as we welcome our new board members to the team, who we believe will bring fantastic energy and leadership strengths to AMT. Our biggest asset and what we are most determined to invest in are our people. I've heard it said that the only constant in life is change, but thankfully, a lot of people that make AMT the association it is have remained reliably present, available, and productive through this last year. Thank you again to everyone who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes, staff, board members, and friends. It would be remiss of me not to mention at this point two of our longest standing directors, Dave Moore and Derek Zorzet, who we farewell from board duties today. I'm sure everyone will join with me in saying thank you for your many, many years of service, and your contribution has been in many ways invaluable. In closing, I thank you most sincerely to all the members for being a part of the AMT community through a really hard season, and wish you a successful year ahead. Item number 5 on the agenda is the Secretary's report. So I'd like to call on Katie Snell for that.
Thanks, Michelle. 2020 was a very challenging year for everyone. We dealt with bushfires, floods, and a global pandemic. The year AMT had planned out ended up being very different. AMT was all geared up at the beginning of 2020 to reach out to industry stakeholders in a more structured way. We welcomed Scott Lloyd Owen to the team in February, and he was busy making plans to visit RTOs to build up industry relationships. We had already made announcements about the AGM workshop in Brisbane, the conference, Robert Livy's conference on tour scheduled in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth. We also had other events lined up in Newcastle, Adelaide, and our various networking groups through the country had events already scheduled for the year. We were ready to go with the infrastructure already implemented on our database for our new professional development scheme. As members started to renew throughout January, we watched people roll out of the old point system into the new hours reflection-based model, and this was really exciting. With a growing membership base, we had already made plans to start Declan Parkey as a trainee, but we were on a collision course with a different fate. As March came, things started to escalate quickly, and when it became apparent COVID-19 was being threaded through community transmission, the AMT board held emergency meetings to discuss what to do, taking into consideration public health and safety, and foremost, the health and safety of you, our members. On the 16th of March, you all received an email advising you to stop practicing. This was not an easy decision for AMT to make, as we knew it would impact members greatly, but it was the right advice for us to give at that time. As more details emerged about the virus, the entire country went into lockdown less than 2 weeks after the AMT advice was circulated. AMT as a business was also greatly impacted by COVID. AMT staff had already started working at home just as we advised you all to shut down, but we weren't entirely prepared for how busy we were going to be. With the constant changes in health advice and various public health orders, AMT was receiving hundreds of calls and hundreds of emails on a daily basis from both members and non-members, seeking clarification, advice, and guidance. Interestingly, during the peak of the crisis, 1/3 of the calls we received were from non-members. During 2020, AMT sent out 160 email updates, not including our usual reminders about insurance, first aid, and renewals. Out of those emails, 92 were relating to COVID-19. It's no wonder we were busy. In fact, we were the busiest we had ever been in my 14 years at AMT. On the 29th of March, we had our very first online AGM, and despite a few technical hiccups, it was a great success and we had a record number of attendees. With 230 participants online, it was the largest AGM we ever held. In October, we also ran our very first virtual conference and pre-conference webinar, also with record numbers of attendees. 165 at the pre-conference webinar and 331 at the virtual conference. It was great seeing the sense of community in the chat. We had members who usually aren't able to attend the face-to-face event be able to be there with their peers online. So thank you to everyone for making both the AGM and virtual conference a great success. We were very happy that we could still run the events. AMT also established a biosecurity committee to create strategies, policies, and a guide to returns to hands-on practice. We have the committee to thank for lots of the resources developed, such as the risk assessment tools, housed in the COVID-19 resources section of our website. You'll find in that section 16 fact sheets, guidelines and risk assessments, 4 video updates, 9 letters and templates, 7 infographics, and 8 social media squares. All these resources are freely available, and we hope you continue to find them useful. Throughout 2020, we provided ongoing support to members in a variety of ways. We provided guidance and template letters on various things such as job seeker and job keeper, rental relief, financial assistance to self-employed health practitioners and more. We extended renewal payments by 3 months and offered payment plans, provided 3-month amnesty on first aid renewal, extended national police checks by 1 year, reduced the amount of CEUs required, sent out lots of PD suggestions, including 7 webinars run by AMT, or mainly Scott, on things such as navigating our new PD system, online consultation guidelines for massage therapists, risk assessment, ongoing risk assessment, and more. We developed online consultation guidelines for massage therapists and a comprehensive risk assessment tool, posted regular updates on social media and articles on the blog, published and distributed a print edition of the AMT yearbook. We also ran the second official 2020 mentoring program for free, as we felt it was important given the unique challenges to continue the program. We had 17 pairs successfully complete the program, and although COVID-19 was the most cited factor felt by both mentees and mentors for not being able to complete all of their goals, the overall feedback was very positive, with mentees stating a greater sense in confidence in a variety of areas, identifying and developing both professional and business opportunities, and helping them to establish better relationships within the industry. Thank you to everyone who participated in the program. We look forward to continuing the program this year. In spite of the pandemic, AMT's membership still grew, and at the close of 2020, we had 3,448 members, a 7% increase relative to last year. And during a global pandemic, it's an extraordinary achievement. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the members of the AMT board, the Biosecurity Committee, and the head office staff. You are all amazing, and the hard work and dedication shown by all of you throughout an extremely difficult year has been inspiring. Most importantly, I would like to thank you, our members, for standing with AMT through 2020. We know it was difficult, but without you, we wouldn't be here. So we look forward to continuing to support you through 2021. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Item number 6 on the agenda is the Treasurer's Report, and I'd like to welcome Subhadra to share that with us.
Hi, everyone. 2020, it was a hell of a year, sure enough. All the gloom of COVID aside, though, the highlight for me was that man, Donald Trump. God, I love Donald Trump. The best stand-up comic I know, and all that fake news to use as material. He got me through the year, and I kind of miss him. Anyhow, I'm here to take you through the really riveting part of our AGM, where you find out how we are doing financially. At our AGM last year, which was at the end of March, so still early days in terms of COVID, I was more than a little worried about where 2020 was headed, and I was visualising us having to access our cash reserves significantly to stay afloat. In addition to membership fees, AMT gets a good part of its income from the yearly conference and workshops and webinars. The board had already begun planning for a big conference in Sydney, which I've already been hearing about from Katie, later in the year, as well as a number of face-to-face workshops and other PD activities in the regions. And suddenly all of that looked like it was going to go up in smoke, and it did. But then certain people got creative. In lieu of the Sydney conference, AMT ran a very successful one-day Zoom event that was seriously informative and rewarding for the many of you who managed to catch it live or watch it later. As for the face-to-face workshops, 1 or 2 ran very early in the year, but after that, all the other events had to be cancelled. We did, however, run a number of free webinars through the year that Katie has already talked to in her earlier report. Okay, let's cut to the chase and have a look now at some key points from the financial statements that have been sent out to you for your perusal. Our overall revenue for last year was just over $334,000, an increase of $176,470 to be exact on the previous year. That's a big chunk of money. So how do we achieve that? As you'll all appreciate, AMT's main income stream is our membership fees, and last year that revenue amounted to a touch under $660,000, almost identical to 2019 actually, so no increase in revenue here. What about our other main sources of revenue? Conference fees revenue was $30,400 odd, and that was down about $10,000 on 2019. Workshop fees revenue, sadly, was only $2,860 odd, which was down a whopping $26,600 odd from the previous year. So there were no increases in revenue to be found here too. As it turned out, a combination of federal and New South Wales state government assistance payments in the form of JobKeeper and other federal stimulus payments, as well as a New South Wales government grant, provided the much appreciated boost to our revenue last year. This funding totaled over $209,000, which is why we ended up in the black instead of the red. On the expenses side, total spending was almost identical to the previous year at just over $780,000. I'm going to highlight the following items. Wages and salaries were up $51,000, just under, on 2019. This was in large part due to the effervescent Scott Lloyd Owen joining the head office team during the year. There are also some pay rise tweaks for the head office team. Superannuation payments were up $4,600 odd, and this was following the increases in the wages payments. Conference costs were down nearly $35,000. Because it was an online event, the cost became much cheaper. And yes, that point has not been lost on me and the board, so expect to see some more online conferences moving forward. General expenses were down $12,800 odd, to be expected as well, as so many activities went online. For example, our postage bill went down very considerably last year. We paid a modest $208 in income tax, giving us at the end of the day an operating profit for 2020 of $153,600. So to conclude, in equity terms, to use the correct lingo, on the 1st of January 2020, AMT was worth, including the furniture, $295,568. And on the 31st of December, we were now worth $449,168. And there you have it. Talk to you again next year.
Thanks, Subhadra. Item number 7 on the agenda is a motion that the 2020 financial statements be accepted, and I'd like to ask for a proposer and a seconder to put their names in the comments for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank
Great,
you.
Item number 8 on the agenda is the report on the election of office bearers. This is a list of the names and positions of your representatives on the AMT board for the upcoming year. Chairperson, Subhadra Gerard. Vice Chairperson, Christy Baird. Treasurer, Joanna Cotterill. Secretary, Michelle McCarran. Director, Yu Jung Soo. Director, Ian Lim. Director, Catherine Potter. Director, Jessica Gorn. Please feel free to thank these people and welcome them in the comments if you like. Item number 9 is other business. And I'd like to bring in our CEO, Rebecca Barnett, just to see if there's anything she'd like to chat about.
Michelle, I don't have any other business to add, but I guess the thing would be to invite people to maybe make a comment in the chat, bearing in mind that very, very soon we're going to open up our interactive workshop in about 15 minutes time. So perhaps if there's a complicated question, we might have to tackle it at a future live event. So we can kind of do similar stuff to what we were doing last year. So, please do feel free to fire us questions about anything to do with what's been presented today. And if we can't answer them now, then we can answer them at a later date. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous in the chat, but not a lot else.
Which is lovely.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. No questions. So Michelle, I think we might be ready to close.
That's fantastic. In that case, I will officially close the meeting at 10:57 a.m. Thank you very much. If any questions do come through, we will answer them at a future time. And for those who are doing the seminar this afternoon, enjoy.
And just before we do say complete goodbye, just a reminder to everyone who is coming to the workshop that it is a separate login. So you'll need to go back and check your emails for when you registered for the workshop and use that link, because we'll be closing this room in about 20 seconds time. I'll just leave it open a little bit longer to see all the thanks flow through, because that's a wonderful boost to our morale. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you back here next year.
Thanks, everybody.